you may have some sort of understanding about the shortages of the petroleum in Russia, which it was. I've seen the footage of you explaining that and saying that these are lines, they're queues, right? Line after line, people are, waiting to, you know, to fill the tanks. What is happening with the shortages in Russia?
Well, that was sarcasm. That was, okay. So we drove down. I mean, I was driving around Moscow to begin with, but we drove down. I'm not going to say where I'm staying. OPSEC is OPSEC, but I'm in the south. I'm in the far south. And we drove down to just across Krasnodar. It was about 1,200 kilometers. So along the roads, the interstates, I'd say probably every second. Yeah, probably about every second gas petrol station had fuel. There were lines here and there. There were. First of all, it's a season where a lot of people drive south. This big Russian migration begins southward because people come for going to the warm weather, or warmer weather. It is warm. I mean, it's 31, 32 down here, but not the 45 of Europe or non-Russian Europe. For most of Europe, by the way, it's a pretty cold winter. I mean, winter. I'm sorry, summer. This year, sometimes feels like winter. So you as long as you plan an extra 2-3 hours on the road, because of there will be lines, and then again, I kept the car tank full, so every time I went down by about a third of tank, I found a place and filled up just in case down the road it might be worse. I could have gone further, much further, and filled up less times because no, there was plenty of fuel. Yeah, I mean, I stood in line here and there. The worst lines were the ones when the fuel trucks arrived and they started filling up the tanks because it shuts down. I'm not sure why it takes an hour and a half to fill up the tanks. It's something technical on their side, but yeah, they're usually closed for about an hour and a half as they're draining the mobile tank on the truck into the underground tanks. But that's about the majority of it. I mean, look, most of the lines where there were lines, there were maybe 5-6 cars deep at most per tank or per filling post. So no, to say that this is some kind of earth-shattering, life-crushing, no. Now, depending on the company, some of them are gouging. I mean, flat-out gouging. Prices gone up no matter what, but you've got big ones like Rosneft or Lukoil. They went up for 92 octane. That's a lot higher than American's base, by the way, is 87. So for 92, which is the base in Russia, it's 92, 95, 100 now. I don't know why you'd need 100 unless you're going on race car track. But the 92 used to be about 57 rubles per liter. Figure 3.8 liters per gallon for the Americans. Those are now about 63, 64 which is a pretty big spike as it is. It's almost it's about 10%, 10-12%. But then there's companies like the Boyle who've jacked up to about 100, 95, 100, which I think the government needs to take a look at them. They're also a major company, but that's gouging. Now I wound up filling up in a couple of those places just because that's what was at hand. But yeah, that's gouging. I mean, the prices going up, but the two of the biggest are standing at 10-12% increase, and these guys are going up fully, about 40%. So that there, and some of the mom and pops, most of the mom and pops did not have fuel, to be honest. I don't trust them anyways because they buy their fuel from the big guys, but they usually are the last ones to get delivered, so they get whatever's at the bottom of the tank, right? So they're already getting the sediment. And second of all, a lot of them aren't getting anything right now because there is still a lot more demand, particularly in the driving season. So the big boys deliver to their chains, and by the time they get to their mom and pops, there's just nothing left. But there is fuel. I mean, it's not a fuel collapse. I know there'll be many people in the West now going to open up their veins in sorrow and depression. They're not collapsing. Nope, we're not collapsing. And by the way, if you look at my videos, the crops are not rotting in the field either. No, we'll have plenty to export and plenty more to eat. In fact, the heavy equipment's all over the place working. And they're saying, one of the signs Russia's collapsing is they're not exporting diesel. Well, duh. Russia never export. Russia has a block on diesel exports every April to about September, for the most part, because that's the agricultural sector. And depending on what part of Russia you're in, when the agriculture sector kicks in, in the very far south, they'll start plowing the fields around late March, early April. And that's because they usually get at least two harvests out of it each season. And in the north, the far north, they'll plow the fields around in mid-May. They'll get one good harvest out because it's continuous light, very long days, so they'll get a lot of light. And if you look at the videos, what you're going to see is the first harvest is being taken in. A lot of the wheat has already been taken. It hasn't been necessarily replanted. You go further south, they're replanting already. They're done replanting for the next harvest. That's going to come in sometime late September, beginning early October. So yeah, so there, yeah, we're not going to starve. Sorry, starvation's off the menu. In fact, starvation's off the menu for everybody who buys from Russia. So I can't guarantee for the EU, but for Africa, Asia, Egypt, for example, no starvation on their menu.
We, since you just clarified the shortages that are happening in Russia, and people are so desperate in Russia because of that, I think many of problems in Europe has been resolved with that shortage narrative that they're making to make their case with the case of Ukraine. And let me shift a little bit, Stas, with what's going on in West Asia, the Iranian attack on Jordan, which was somehow significant because the first time you see CENTCOM coming out and mentioning that two of the soldiers were killed. Yesterday it was announced, and one of them is missing. Some, 15 or 16 forces were sent to Germany because of their condition. And today they have announced two more forces were killed. And this is the situation right now with the war. And the war is somehow escalating because the United States has attacked or struck the Darhouen nuclear power plant in the western part of Iran. And then we had Iranian attack on power grid in Kuwait, and desalination. Two of the desalination plants were hit, and the power grid. Where do you see the war going? It seems that in the coming days there would be a huge escalation between Iran and the United States. We have today is the World Cup, the final of the World Cup, and maybe tomorrow and the day after tomorrow and the coming weeks, we're going to have some sort of escalation. What is your understanding of that?
Well, I see a depopulated southern portion of the Middle East, of the Persian Gulf. Look, those desalination plants, I'm not sure what the population of Kuwait is. Let me check right quick, just out of curiosity here.
I think it's going to be a few 100,000.
5.1 million.
Yeah. Oh,
of which 5.1 million, of which 1.5 million are citizens. So the rest are, paid labor. By the way, they refer to paid labor as slaves. A lot of these Arab states do. I knew a French colonel who served. He hated him. After he was a lieutenant in the sapper after the Gulf War, and his battalion stayed to continue demining. Said when they were done, the final goodbye ceremony, the Minister of Defense of Kuwait comes out and says, Thank you for being such good slaves for us. You were the best slaves we ever had. He said he hated those guys ever since after that. They really do. There are pompous asses. I mean, let's be honest about it. So 1.5 million citizens. The other people are probably, I mean, realistically, it's probably a lot less right now than 5.1 million, because anyone with half a brain and enough money to get the hell out has gotten the hell out. Let's just say even 4 million are left. Okay? Those desalination plants covered 50% of that population, but for 2.5 million people. So you're now down to water for 2.5 million people with about 4 million people to feed. 50 plus degree heat. You know what type of heat there is. For the Americans, that's 120 plus Fahrenheit. If you're close to the coast, it's 100% humidity. You're further in. Let me put this way. Some friends of ours, they're Arab, they're Orthodox Arabs, Orthodox Christian. They lived in Kuwait, did some work. They had a housekeeper, and she would put out the laundry, wet clothing. She'd put it on the line, and by the time she was done putting it on the line, she goes back to the front of the line and starts picking it back up. Because in 5 minutes, there is no moisture left in those wet towels and bed sheets and shirts. They're dry, absolutely dry. The air is that dry, it just sucks everything out. And they weren't that far. I mean, Kuwait's not that big. They weren't that far away from the coast, but that's the heat index. So those people now are stuck without water. So what do? They either stay and die, or start fighting over the water, or they leave. I mean, there's enough water for people to survive, kind of miserably, but to survive. But how long will that last? And I think that's going to happen. The Americans have let the genie out of the bottle yet again. They've started targeting Iranian key infrastructure, power plants, bridges. It was funny because one of the bridges they took out, because Iran is in a drought, they just drive around the bridge because the river's dry. And it was one of those Trump was, oh, we took out the bridge. This was a key bridge. And they're all just driving around that bridge because the river right now is dry. Sometimes drought does help. So, yeah, that's like one of those, sorry, not a big goal like you thought. But look, that the fact that these guys were killed in Jordan, if you look at the videos, first of all, it still amazes me they don't have bunkers. At this point, you go, holy shit, Batman. They still don't have bunkers. I mean, how ignorant do you have to be, and how insane do you have to be? How lazy of a commander do you have to be that your troops are still living in containers that are standing in rows, and they don't have adequate bunkers? After in the are you there?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So, yeah. So after and even if you didn't have bunkers before that, these 2 months of pseudo ceasefire blockade, that you should have been digging bunkers left and right. I mean, it's incredible. Watch this. And the strikes, the Iranian strikes on that housing units, and the way they went up, there was an inferno. There were pictures that were coming out. They were just an inferno. So when you tell me 2 guys died and maybe 2 more were injured critically and died en route to Germany, and another dozen were injured, I don't believe you for a second. And from the sources I've had, I was predicting not 15 guys got killed in phase 1, but maybe 150. Off by maybe 10, a factor of 10. But I was told as well it's well over 1,000 that were killed. So, this is how many people died, a whole lot more than the U.S. government's ever going to admit to. It's like Zelensky saying, there's 50,000 have died in Ukraine. And then you see one military cemetery, that's got about 50,000 graves in it from the year just in Kharkiv alone. So, they're like, yeah, okay, 50,000 in 4 years have died, sure. And 10 million Russians. Don't forget that part. So it's the same thing. Yeah, we've killed every Iranian that was ever born, ever lived, and we've lost 2 guys. That's the type of crap that's coming out of the White House right now. The same thing as you have Trump that went out and said, we've talked to the Chinese, and the Chinese, we forced them to agree that they're not going to aid anything to Iran. And the Chinese come out, an hour later, oh, no, we've never even talked. It's like, oh, yeah, well, maybe we didn't talk, but they know we were pressuring them, and they're not going to do it. Like, this is a regime that lies as it breathes. Anything they say, pretty much you just ignore it. It's a lie.
Yeah. Yeah, Jordan just the foreign ministry of Jordan just announced that the Iranian ambassador was summoned, and a strongly worded protest message was delivered to him. Jordan's security is a red line. The guy is just.
If you wanted security as a red line, you'd get the Americans out of there, so they're not shooting things off your territory. There you go.
It's, somehow it's amazing to understand the mindset of these people, because on one side you see it's been how many months? 4 months, 5 months they're attacking Iran using Jordan, and right now the guy is coming out. The security is important. The security wasn't important before participating with the United States to attack on Iran, and it's unbelievable what's going on with these guys.
Also the Gulf state Arabs. Oh, we're victims. We don't know what's going on. Okay, the Americans are flying out of our territory. Oh, and they're shooting, HIMARS, high precision missiles out of our territory. But we're victims. Oh, whoops. Oh, you found out we've been shooting also? We're still victims. This is like the boyfriend that comes over there, beats his girlfriend all the time. He gives her flowers, beats her some more, and says it's really her fault. I'm the victim here. This is that level of insanity. But okay, the thing is, the Hashemite kings are also not particularly popular at the moment with a lot of Jordanians, especially Palestinian Jordanians. So lots of hits, and Jordan's infrastructure going down could cost them the throne. Sorry, there's a car parking right below me. The smart thing would be to tell the Americans to go bounce. We're closing, and we're not going to be Israel's puppet. But who's talking about smart things? None of them seem to be smart.